Hey everybody, what's up? Welcome back to my channel, or welcome to my channel if you are new. My name is Cristin. Normally I do vlogger content, but we're doing a little something different today. Today I'm doing a video collaboration with my friend Melissa Caitlyn. I will leave her video down below, so make sure you go check her out after you watch mine. But I thought it'd be fun to come on here and just share with you guys all of the different jobs I've had throughout my life. I am now 30 years old, and I've done a handful of different things. So I thought it'd just be kind of fun to come on here and share that with you guys. This video idea I am kind of copying off of Beauty Christy. Love watching her, so I'll leave her video link down below because that's where I got the idea from. And yeah, I just think it's kind of a fun thing to, you know, chat about. So anyways, yeah, all the jobs that I've had, I am 30 years old, and so let's just roll it back a ways. When I was about 9 or 10 years old, my parents started a construction company. My dad was a licensed plumber and a licensed contractor, and it was just like a small little mom and pop type shop. And so I would go on site with my dad quite a bit. And my job was demolishing. I was demolition. Why am I talking like that? I'm not a Valley girl. Never been to California. So yeah, I would have a sledgehammer at like 9 or 10 years old. I can't remember how old I was exactly. And I would like demolish walls or whatever else needed ripped out, typically walls. I don't really remember doing much else, maybe a cabinet or two. But I can remember going into like some really old houses that people, like they were pretty much trashed, and people were just like renovating them, like flipping them. And they'd hire my dad to come in and do the plumbing and to rip the walls out and, you know, to do stuff like that. And yeah, he'd be like, okay, we're gonna rip out this whole wall right here. Don't go all the way through the wall into the wall on the other side, because like walls are, you know, there's normally 2 sides to a wall. So rip out this side of the wall, don't go all the way through, or I'll have to like patch everything on the other side. Done that a few times. And yeah, he's like, I'm gonna be back here plumbing, so get to work. So I'd be like ripping walls out at the ripe old age of 9 or 10. Yeah, my dad was paying me about $20 an hour to demolish walls. After that, we roll into me being about 13-ish. I was trying to get on doing detasseling, but I was unable to get hired. This had been back in like 2003 time frame, and things just weren't looking good even back then. I know the economy burst in 2008, but even back in like 2003, it was hard to come by a job, especially as a teenager. And most places in my area won't hire you until you're 15 or 16 anyways. But getting on doing detasseling, which is farm work, you're pulling like the yellow tassels off the corn. I don't really know why, but you do, something to do with fertilizing the corn, is normally a job that teenagers can get. It's long hours, hard work in the sun, but a job a teenager can do, a young teenager. But I never got a call back. I applied and I never got hired. So I think my parents just kind of like felt bad for me because they seen how badly I wanted to work, and like nobody would hire me because I was too young, and detasseling did not hire me because I was literally going up against like 20-year-old men who couldn't find jobs. So like we had to go stand like a huge line. It was a big process. Me and my mom had to go stand in a big line, and there was, of course, there's other teenagers there like my age, a little bit older than me, but then there was like a fair amount of like actual adults applying for the job. So I never got called. I never got a call on it. So because I think my parents felt kind of bad for me, I ended up getting a mowing job. So my parents paid me to mow their lawn. My neighbor paid me to mow his, and I made $20 mowing my neighbor's. I think I made $20 mowing my parents because they both had pretty big lawns. And then my dad paid me to mow my grandma's lawn, and I made $10 doing hers. So I mean, not bad every 2 weeks for a 13-year-old, right? To make 50 bucks every 2 weeks as a 13-year-old. Not horrible. And I did that job for a couple of years. So around the time that I was also mowing lawns, my mom had gotten me a pet rabbit. And it turned out that this rabbit was not a dwarf rabbit as we'd been told by the pet shop. She ended up getting quite large, and we ended up having to get rid of her because it was just inhumane trying to keep her cooped up in a cage all day, and we didn't have space for a larger cage. and of course I was in school, so that's why she was in a cage all day, because I had to be in school. So we found out through one of my friends who had an exact same experience with a rabbit she also got from the exact same pet store. And we found out from her that they took their rabbit out to a farm. And this farm, I wish I knew exactly like what you'd want to call it. I really don't know. But they were on the back side of my neighborhood. And sorry if you can hear fireworks. People have been setting them off like crazy lately. So anyways, this farm was like on the back side of my neighborhood growing up. And they just had tons of exotic animals. And I know one way that they made business was that they would take a lot of their livestock and they would sell them at auction. So, and they bred stuff. But as a kid, I didn't recognize it as breeding for selling, but as an adult, I recognized what it was. So I was probably 13 at the time. And we go to talk to them about taking our rabbit. And this farm, like I said, was just really neat. It was a really neat experience. And it was just a volunteer job, but I was on a regular schedule. I showed up, I can't remember if it was once a week or twice a week, and I had like set hours. So it was very much like a job, structured like a job. And I was working, I just wasn't getting paid for it. And so we ended up talking to them about taking my rabbit, and they're like, oh yeah, totally, no problem. You know, we'll take her, not an issue. We'll put her in this little special enclosure. And then I asked the lady who was running the farm, her name was Polly, she's a very old lady. I was like, you know, I feel a really big sense of responsibility to my rabbit. I feel really bad that I have to get rid of her. You know, can I work for you? Is there anything I could do for you to work so that I could come and see my bunny? And she's like, oh yeah, like I can always use more hands on the farm. You can come here and you can volunteer. And so we get everything set up for me to come and volunteer. And like I said, this job was just really neat. She had, I'm trying to figure out exactly how to explain this place. When you first, it was several acres of land, and it was all animals. And when you first walked in, kind of like you passed it was kind of like a large storage shed. It wasn't quite a barn, but it wasn't quite a storage shed. And inside of this space, they had all kinds of like they had like your rats, your hamsters, your sugar gliders, your hedgehogs, any rodent type of animal was in this space, along with some hatchlings like baby birds and a couple of types of eggs they were trying to hatch, one of which being, I believe, an ostrich egg, if I remember correctly. Off from there, there was a barn you could walk into, and they had, I want to say they're called like little pygmy deer. They're very tiny, very cute. Oh my god, I got to like snuggle some of them. There was one of them that was like, ended up being really tame and like became my friend. And then she had like a little parrot that hung out in this barn. It wasn't like a macaw or anything, it was like a small parrot. I don't remember exactly the species. But this was around the time, and if you want to know the exact year this was, well, roughly year it was. It's when the Toby Keith song came out, Who's Your Daddy? And this parrot would hang on to like these wires, because like you have, think of like a regular barn and you have stalls. Well, some of these stalls, like you'd have like the half wall and you have like these big like framed out window spaces, and instead of having like a proper window, they would have like chicken wire. And so this bird would like perch on the chicken wire on the wall. It's kind of like a wall pretty much. And I'd be mucking stalls. That was my job, right? The uninteresting stuff was my job. Mucking stalls, cleaning windows, cleaning the chicken coop, like all this gross stuff, right? That was my job. So the little bird would sit there while you're working and mucking the stalls and cleaning everything out, and he'd be like, who's your daddy? Who's your daddy? And he'd like bob his head and say, it was the best thing. And it was hilarious because he's so tiny. And he's like, who's your daddy? And he's like, you know, like this big, tiny little bird. Something else that was kind of neat about this property is that she just had herds of guinea pigs. Like, I'm not kidding you. She just had, I think, like 2 different herds of guinea pigs. She had at least 2 large barns, maybe 3. I'm trying to remember correctly. It's been a few years. And there was a herd of guinea pigs in each barn. In one of the barns, the guinea pigs had access to the outside, like to run the whole property. I want to say it was like 5 acres, maybe more, and probably more. And then, because my in-laws are on 8 acres, and they probably had it had to be more than 8 acres because there's a lot of space. And then the front barn like had like a fenced off area that animals could go outside into, and that's where my bunny got put. And that was where a lot of bunnies ended up being at. And they would take in any animals that like people just couldn't handle anymore, exotics, right? So your guinea pigs, your rabbits, your hamsters, your mice, your sugar gliders. We're not talking dogs and cats. We're talking like anything, you know, different. And like I said, they would take things and they would sell them at Strawtown. That's a place that's it's like an auction. It's like a farm area auction center, Strawtown. And my bunny got sold. They told me they never knew what happened to it. They're like, oh, well, she should be in there. She must have got out. No. As an adult, I can look back and I recognize that my bunny must have been something special because she got put in with all these other really pretty bunnies. And like after about 3 or 4 months of working there to volunteer, like half those bunnies disappeared. And apparently for whatever reason, they didn't have the heart to tell me that they sold my bunny. Because all these other bunnies, like my friend's bunny, was like a basic brown lop-eared rabbit, like just got released to go run. Like they were not enclosed anywhere. They were pretty much left to be wild, except for they had easy access to food and they could get into places for protection. Like I said, there was another barn on the property that was kind of like a come and go kind of a situation. Like sometimes you would see the herd of guinea pigs running in and out of this barn. And they were very not tame guinea pigs at all. Whereas the rabbits and the guinea pigs in the first barn were a lot more tame. And so yeah, I'm pretty sure those ones were like just being auctioned off and being sold, which they gotta make money somehow, you know, like I'm sure they're operating as a business. So they also have another set of enclosures. The only thing I can really relate it to would be like dog kennels, but like they weren't dog kennels. And this held a lot of like exotic birds, but I was told they were dangerous. So like I could look at them from like the outside, but I could not interact with these animals at all whatsoever. And I don't even remember exactly what she had. One of which I want to say was like a hawk or like an owl. It was something that was hurt and they were rehabilitating it. But there were other animals there, like other birds that I like, for the life of me, can't tell you what they are. But I just remember her telling me like, they're dangerous, you know, don't. You can look from here. Don't go inside the cages. She also had a herd of donkeys. Oh yeah, a herd of donkeys. And a lot of the animals, something that they did for the animals was they would give them animal cookies as like treats. And so what you would do is you'd walk into the first barn, and that was part of the deal. Was like after I did my chores and my cleaning, chores, whatever, my job, I could go hang out with the animals. I could hang out with my bunny. I could spend some time hanging out with whatever animals I wanted to spend time with. And so they had just like jars of animal crackers, right? Just like big jars of animal crackers. And you would take a few handfuls and you'd fill your pockets with animal crackers so that while you're walking around the farm, if you want to like give the animals a treat, you can. Well, these herds, there was one herd of donkeys, knew that people kept animal crackers in their back pocket. And so you would be out in the pasture walking to wherever you're going, and you would have a herd of donkeys surround you and bite your ass. I'm not kidding. Wherever you're heading until you get crossed. They had in the middle of the biggest pasture, they had like a large pond, and off from that they had irrigation systems. So it was like little trenches dug that ran off to water everything. And there was like planks, decent sized wood planks. And some of the donkeys would cross, some of them would not. But like when you're in the big main part of the pasture, like it was not uncommon to get surrounded by these donkeys and have them biting your ass because they wanted animal crackers. So it wasn't just me volunteering there. There was a girl that I worked with, there was a girl that I went to school with who also picked up a volunteer job shortly after I did. Probably thought I would like to have somebody to work with. Her and I went to class together, and it turned out that Misty, which is the girl's name, her grandma was good friends with Polly. So Polly offered Misty a volunteer position just like me. So I can remember, a few more animals that they had before we finish up this little part of the story. She had an ostrich on this farm. I don't know how in the middle of Indiana you end up with an ostrich, but you do. And it was really nice for an ostrich. Like you wouldn't expect that, but it was a very sweet bird. And I would let you pet it. And I'll just say that petting an ostrich underneath of the wings is a lot like touching chicken skin, which shouldn't be weird, and yet it is when you're not expecting it. Like, I just expected them to have fluff like all the way up underneath of their wings. This one did not. I don't know if that's normal or not, but yeah, it liked being petted under its wings, but it really felt like touching like chicken skin, just warm, which is, it was just a little unnerving. I'll just leave it at that. The texture was a little unnerving. And then she also had, well, she had a herd of reindeer. They were not tame whatsoever. They hung out in the back part of the property. They were all albino, and it was really neat to just watch them run by. Like, you never got close to them. They wanted nothing to do with people, but it was really cool to just watch them run through the pasture. Again, how in the middle of Indiana she ended up with a herd of albino reindeer, I have no idea, but she had them. And then she also had emus, like descended from raptors, emus. At least I'm pretty sure that the emus are descended from raptors, if I remember correctly. They mostly hung out in the back part of the farm, like out towards the back, and this whole thing was high fencing all the way around, right? So like nothing could escape except for the rabbits, who mated with the cottontails in the area. So in my neighborhood, it was not uncommon to find interesting looking cottontails wild rabbits that were quite the mix. So anyways, way out in the back part of this farm, she had some like little storage huts, not quite sheds, like huts. And she kept like extra feed, straw, hay, that kind of stuff back there. And I can remember one time being told by a worker, because she did have people there who worked, tell me and Misty, she was like, hey, we need you guys to go out to these huts and we need you to get something out of them. I don't remember what, probably feed. And she says, you know, the emus are back there, so be careful. They will try to hunt you, and make sure they don't get behind you because they will whack you on the back of their head with your beaks. So Misty and I head out towards this back area, and lo and behold, the emus, I want to say she had at least 4, but she might have had more than that. I really don't remember at this point. Started flanking us on the sides and kind of behind us, and so like we're in a team and we're trying to keep an eye on these birds and know where they're at. 13-year-old girls, right, trying to know where these giant birds are at. And they're literally like hunting us. It's exactly how it feels. I felt so uncomfortable. I felt like prey. It was a really unnerving sensation and feeling to have these giant birds that are probably 6 feet tall, like surrounding around us. They never came in close. Thankfully, we were able to go and get what we needed and get back out of that area. But I have a feeling we were not supposed to be sent back there because we were never asked to go do that again. My guess is that the worker who sent us did not want to go deal with the emus, and so she just sent us. And if I had to guess, Polly probably found out about it and got very upset because like we're children volunteering. We shouldn't be being put in dangerous situations around these birds who could seriously do some damage. And I was under the impression that emus also had like a nasty hook on the back of their legs. Could be wrong on that. Because I did this video before and we had issues, so I'm filming it again. And I was trying to find a picture of the claw on the back of the emu to insert, and I could not find one. So maybe I am mistaken, but I thought that they had like a nasty claw on the back of their legs. So yeah, I can mark off being hunted by emus from my bucket list. I've done that. Yeah, so what happened with that job and why I quit. Polly calls my house and says, Misty told us that you have been showing up when you're not supposed to, and you've been doing things like, I guess there's animals that were getting let out of pens, and there are things going on that weren't supposed to be going on. There was a horse there that was, I think the term would be called, broke down. She was real old. She was just there to live out the rest of her life. She had a major slope on her back, and she was supposed to be kept in like a certain area, and they were finding her places she wasn't supposed to be, and the blame got pointed on me. Misty said that I was coming and doing things when I was not scheduled to be showing up. And so she was like, you know, because you're doing this stuff, I can't have you back at the farm. I was like, that's not me, I'm not doing that, but like, okay. Well, like maybe a week goes by, it wasn't very long, and we get a call from Polly, and she's like, I'm so sorry. It turns out this was actually Misty coming in and doing everything. But keep in mind, Misty was the granddaughter of Polly's friend. So whatever Misty said was gospel. So they ended up catching Misty trying to take this broke down horse like into the pond or something. Like, I don't even know why you would do that, but like she was. At least I think that's what was going on. I think they caught her. I don't know if she was trying to ride the horse. Like, we were specifically told, like, this horse got problems. Like, don't be climbing on her. Don't be messing with her. You know, like, you can pet her, but, like, you know, she's old. And I really want to say they found her trying to pull the horse out in the water. I don't remember. It's been a long time. But Polly calls up, and she's apologizing, and she's like, you know, we realized it wasn't you. Do you want to come back and have your job again? Like, you can come back. But after like being accused of things that I was not doing, I was like, no, I'm good. Like, thanks for the experience. Like, my rabbit's already gone. Like, I'm good. My reason for being there is gone. So I quit, got fired. I don't know, whatever you want to call it. Got fired and then rehired and then quit. So after that whole experience, which only lasted maybe 6 months tops, maybe 8 months. It was a little while, you know, I mean, a decent amount of time for a kid to have a job at 13, I guess. After that, I turned 16. My parents get me a car for my birthday because they're awesome like that, but also to teach me responsibility. They told me that I had to get a job and pay for the gas in my car and my insurance, or the car would be going up on blocks in the backyard. So, like cinder blocks, like, you ain't gonna be driving this if you're not gonna be paying for it. You know, like, they'll cover the car payments, but you gotta cover everything else. And they gave me 6 months to find a job, I think. Or 3 months or something, I don't remember. So, I get out and I start looking for jobs everywhere. And they did let me drive the car, you know, during that time frame while I was trying to find jobs. And they seen how hard I was struggling to find a job. This had been back in like 2006. Keep in mind, the economy imploded in 2008. So I and this is back when we had paper applications, I was turning in applications nearly anywhere I could think to put in an application. I was calling to check on applications. I was calling to see who was hiring. Like, I was doing everything I could. My parents seen that. So they ended up expanding my length of time to find a job because I just wasn't finding one despite the effort I was putting in. Like, nobody was wanting to hire a teenager when you had the option to hire adults, right? So I finally, after several months of putting in applications, I get a call back from a restaurant, and I all but beg for this restaurant job. I head right over right after school for my interview. Y'all want to hear what I wore to my interview? Like, who let me out of the house wearing this is what I want to know. Fashion, right? So I show up to this interview and I think I look good, okay? I am interview ready. I show up in a mini skirt that probably goes about mid-thigh. It is camouflage floral. I have knee-high fuzzy boots, and I have on a tan lace eyelet clasp corset top, back when, you know, we used to wear corsets as shirts. And on top of that, I have a blazer that matches the mini skirt. Man, interview ready, right? Like, if you're working at a strip club, maybe. So yeah, I go in there, I beg for this job. Like, I'm like, my parents are gonna take away my car if I don't get a job. Like, working at this restaurant, being in here, like, will make me think of my grandpa, because we used to come eat here all the time with him when he was alive. Yeah, I said that. Begging for this job, because it's the only job interview I've had in months, and I have been trying so hard to get a job. And they hired me. I ended up working there for 4 years. I was there from the time I was 16 until I was 19-ish, somewhere in there. 16, 17, 18, 19. Yep, that's right. I started off doing the bussing of tables, so I just cleaned tables. And from there, I started doing the cash register and seating people. And then I went back to dishwasher. That is hard work, I'll tell you guys what. Dishwasher, hard work. From there I went to salad bar, where I would prep everything for salad bar, and that also came along with doing pies. They sold cream pies and they sold fruit pies. And I remember making cream pies quite a bit. I don't remember making a lot of fruit pies, but they had somebody who worked salad bar every single day in the morning that did all of the prep and all of the pies first thing in the morning. So, I mean, I take that back. Now that I think about it, I remember using this large like baking oven, and I remember using that quite a bit. They did like apple dumplings and peach dumplings, and then I remember putting things in there quite a bit. So maybe the pies came frozen and you just had to bake them. But I remember the cream pies you had to make in the store, and I remember doing those quite a bit myself. So yeah, did the salad bar, and then I moved over to waitressing. I am probably one of the world's worst waitresses. I can't tell you how often I would forget tables. Let's say I did not make much in tips. I'm not good at being a server. I suck at it. So yeah, I did almost everything there except for cook and be a manager. They did offer to teach me how to be a line cook. I declined because when I was a teenager, I had horrible acne, like to the point that I had to get laser treatment on my face, bad acne. And I was afraid that working around the grease grills and stuff would just make everything all that much worse. So I declined it, even though it probably paid quite a bit more than what I was making doing everything else. So yeah, I did the job for 4 years, and during that time frame, I graduated in 2009, so I'd have been 19. The fall of 2009, I applied at the high school I graduated at for substitute teaching. I don't know who thought it was a good idea to hire a 19-year-old as a substitute teacher, but I got the job. And yeah, I loved it. I really enjoyed substitute teaching. Middle school was my favorite place to substitute teach at. I felt like I could really relate with the kids. Shocker, I was 19. And I just really enjoyed it. I did middle school, I did elementary school a little bit, but not a ton. I mostly did middle school, and I got to the point where the middle school teachers actually started to request for me to come in and do their classrooms if they needed to take a day off. So that always felt pretty good when it's like, you know, you do well enough that somebody actually wants you there. But I do remember when I very first started doing substitute teaching, I came in through the set of double doors. Like, I didn't know where I was supposed to come in at. So I parked in the wrong area, parked in the student parking, which, keep in mind, like, I just graduated from there that fall. And so that, like, past year, I've been parking in student parking. And there were some teachers who parked out there too. And so I come through the double doors, and my assistant principal, well, he had been my assistant principal, was like, "Hi, Cristin, how are you?" And he goes, "Wait, why are you here? You just graduated." I was substitute teaching. And then another time when I was working in the middle school, I just started. I want to say it was like my 8th grade math teacher maybe, or maybe my 7th grade history teacher. I can't remember. But she seen me, and she like jumped me, was like, "Why are you here? You can't be in the middle school. You need to be over in the high school. Get out of here." Because they did not like having high schoolers hanging out in the middle school. There was automatically like a shoo you out, get out, you can't be here. And I'd be like, "No, I'm working, I'm a substitute teacher, like I've got my red folder with all my information in it, I've got like my badge, like I'm allowed to be here." But she was like not happy about it. Which, looking back, I'm kind of like, yeah, I mean, having a 19-year-old run the classroom for like, you know, 20 some odd 13, 14, 15-year-olds, or however old you are in middle school, kind of weird. But I got hired, and I did that job for a couple of years. And it paid decent. I made, I think, like $60 a day. I mean, it wasn't horrible. And it was pretty easy. Most of the time was like turning on the television for them to watch something, or they had like packets to hand out. It was pretty easy. And for a lot of the kids, or a lot of the classrooms rather, I'd say, it's like, as long as they were quiet and doing their work, I pretty much let them sit wherever they wanted to. And a lot of times they'd be like hanging out, like laying on the floor or something. And I'm like, I don't care. As long as you get your stuff done, you can sit wherever you want. That I will say, one time I worked the elementary school. Well, I did it a couple times, but one in particular time, I can't remember if it was a kindergarten class or a first grade class. I want to say first grade. And a kid comes up to me and says, "Can I sharpen my pencil?" I opened up a Pandora's box. Oh my goodness, bad mistake. Turns out that first graders are not responsible enough to sharpen their own pencils. And at 19, I was unaware of this, because it turned in from one kid wanting to sharpen their pencil to all of the kids wanting to sharpen their pencils. And you can't let one do it and not let the rest do it. So yeah, that took like probably 30 to 45 minutes. I mean, looking back now, as an adult, I probably should have said, "Hey, we're not doing this. Everybody back in your seat." But at 19, I just let them all run over the top of me, and I was like, "Okay, sharpen your pencils and sit down, because I don't know what I'm doing, because I'm still a kid my own self." So there's that. I did that job for, I want to say 2 years. And then like at the end of every school year, you were supposed to send in like a form or something saying, "Hey, I'm going to do this again next year." And I finally got to a place with my new job that we'll get into here in a second, where I was making more money and getting more hours working for them. So I just kind of quit. Like there was no like a formal quitting. It was just kind of like a, you don't send in the form, you don't work here anymore kind of a thing. So yeah, worked the job for about 2 years. So like I said, did the restaurant job for 4. At the end of the 4 years working the restaurant job, I was, like I said, 19, graduated, going into college, and at the end of my senior year, my boss at the restaurant job says, "Hey, you know, so-and-so who runs the salad bar in the morning is quitting. Do you want to take over her position?" I can't remember how many hours I'd be getting. I want to say it was going to be like 6 hours a day, 5 days a week, something like that. Not bad for a college kid, right? And I'm like, "Yeah, sure, I'll definitely do it." So they trained me to do this job. And I do it for a week or two, but then I've got college classes starting up. There was only one class during the summer, and I think it was like once a week or something like that. But I don't think my boss liked that, apparently. My availability to her, apparently. Because out of nowhere, they hire in a new girl, and they tell me that she's going to be doing like the hostess and the register, which is what she started on. I'm like, "Okay, cool, whatever." Well, then they asked me to start teaching Regina how to do the salad bar, you know, so that she knows what to do when I'm not there or when she's there in the evening. So I'm like, okay, it makes sense, because the girl who just quit had taught me how to do stuff for, like, you know, the evenings and whatnot. And then when she took over my position, like she really went in depth teaching me everything. And they seemed to want me to teach in depth everything to Regina, but I didn't think anything of it. Like it didn't click, right? Still 19. So after about 2 weeks, I get told that, "Hey, you're losing all those hours. We're giving this position to Regina, and you're back doing whatever we stick you on." Because again, I did about everything in the restaurant. Yeah, that pissed me off real good. So after talking with my mom, she did food samples. She worked for a company doing food samples. She got me on where she worked. I paid decent, $10 an hour back in 2009. And I got the opportunity to travel like a lot. And it was really cool. I really enjoyed it. Worked for a marketing company. I don't want to give out too much information because I still work that job at 30. Yeah, a little painful to say that, but we'll get into it. So I quit Richard's, which is the restaurant I was working at. I quit it, and I hop on over to doing the marketing company and handing out food samples, which also led into me doing some merchandising, which is pretty much just like going in and making sure certain things are on shelves and that they're in the right place. And like sometimes I'd have to do merchandising resets, which really sucked. I didn't like those. But like I say, it paid pretty decent, and yeah, I did it for 4 years straight. After getting on with that job and getting more hours and getting more money, I quit the substitute teaching, like I said, because I was just making more money doing the other job. So I did that job for about 4 years. The marketing company doing the demos was just hitting a slow season, which happens with the demos, where like companies are just not putting out samples, they're just not wanting to work with you. Like if you don't know how that works, like say Kellogg's wants samples of a cereal handed out in a store. Well, they will work with a merchandising company to set up to have X amount of samples handed out X amount of stores. Well, it was just a dry season. People weren't buying stuff a whole lot. Things tend to pick up a lot more towards like school season, Thanksgiving, and Christmas. And then you kind of taper off in like January, so time frame that picks up around Easter and 4th of July. Then after 4th of July, it kind of tapers off again. It's kind of how that works. So when the jobs are there, the demonstrations are there, you can really be making some money and working a lot. And then when the jobs are not there, you can really not be making much of anything at all. And so at one point, they were hitting another dry spell. Just wasn't a whole lot going on. And so I have a friend get up with me, and she had gotten a job in Lafayette, Indiana, which is like an hour away from me, where she worked for a call center that handled, I am reluctant to say the name because I feel like I could probably give myself some problems here. So I worked for a call center who handled a certain cell phone providers like accounts, like they're like selling accounts, like customer service, right? So we'll call the cell phone provider V, and y'all can just, you know, make connections where you will. So yeah, training for customer service for V took about 3 months. 2 months in the class training, 1 month on the floor doing the calls. Guys, when I say this was probably one of my worst jobs, if not my worst job ever, y'all, this is like my worst job ever, probably, that I can think of. I don't think you could pay me enough money to go back to work at a call center. Holy crap, how folks do it, I don't know. But I've got a whole new respect for anyone who ever has to handle customer service on the phone, because people are so hateful, nasty, and rude when they don't have to deal with a person in person. I mean, they are hateful, nasty, rude, and entitled when they got to deal with a person in person, but like do retail kind of stuff, being in the store, super hateful, nasty, can be. Put them on the phone where they don't even see you, and holy cow, like, did your mother teach you to be that nasty to people? Like, it's like you can just completely forget that you're on the phone with a person, right? Like, and so you just get super hateful, super nasty, yelling, screaming, cussing, you name it. And so even though the job itself wasn't that bad, and I loved my coworkers, and the job was full-time with decent benefits and decent pay, dealing with the customers every day and getting yelled at and screamed at every day, horrible. Horrible, made me hate the job. Like, almost immediately made me hate the job. Sorry, had to put my hair up because it is just toasty in here, okay? So, y'all, this job, horrible. I hardly ever opened accounts for anybody. It was very rare that I actually had people call in wanting to set up accounts. I say that it's for a cell phone company, and it is, because like that's their biggest thing that they're known for. I didn't even know that they offered home packages, but they do, and they offer them all along the East Coast. So so what I handled was nothing to do with cell phones, but it was everything to do with V's home packages. So that would be their internet, their home phones, their television. And about sucked in a fuzzy. So yeah, people would call in to get help with their home packages, to set up home packages, or to cancel home packages. And when people would call in to cancel a home package, you were supposed to save their package at any cost. Like, during my training, something that was talked about in training, like in, not just like my trainer just randomly talking about it, but like actually in the training, like read it. That wasn't in a book, it was all on a computer, but like, you know, reading it kind of training. We were told that, for example, say somebody calls in and says, Grandma died, we'd like to cancel the account. Try to ask if they will save the account. Try to save the account, okay? Say, you know, I understand your loss, but like, do you want to hold on to the account in case somebody tries to call Grandma, you know, for like the next 3 months? And you want to play it off all nicey nice, like we're doing you a favor, but in reality, it's like, save the account. That's what we're being told on the back end. save the account. Don't let them close it out. And then the other thing is like, well, grandma's had this account for 50 years. I can see it's right here. She's had the same phone number for 50 years. Are you sure you don't want to save the account for nostalgia? Like, that's grandma's phone number. Do you really want it going to somebody else? Like, how shitty is that, right? Yeah, again, V. That's their logo. That's who I was working for. Technically, I was working for a different company that was outsourced, but like, that's who we were working for. So yeah, there was a lot of issues there. I can remember one time somebody called in to actually set up an account, and I was working on them with getting their account set up and everything that they wanted. And at the end of it, they asked, and they were like, can you email me a copy of my contract before I sign it? And I was not able to send them a copy of their contract to read before signing it. I was able to send them like a generalized contract. Not their particular contract, a generalized contract. No, V wanted them to sign the contract without seeing it before I could send it to them. Yeah, I was like, yeah, well, like, you know, as soon as you sign the contract, I can send you your contract. No sense. Shady. Shady, shady. So, not only did I hate working there because of the way customers would just call in yelling and screaming, which I understand because the problems that they were having, I would be frustrated with too. But like, also these like way of handling business, shady. And I'm sure other cell companies are like this as well. We have AT&T have issues with them all the time. So like, I'm not just saying it's V, but like my experience working for them, girl. So I worked there for 3 months, and part of working at a call center, at least this one in particular, is that you had like, I want to say like 6 minutes to handle a phone call. But the server system that everything was on was total schnit, and it ran really slow. So, and the kicker, they wanted us to push and sell Fios internet, but you know the internet we had at the call center? Comcast. So, yeah, I could hardly ever finish a phone call in 6 minutes because our servers were so dang slow that it took 6 minutes just to load a page. And so part of this was like, when I was in training, they were not docking your time or tracking that. I mean, they were tracking it, but they weren't like giving you any repercussions for it. But after you actually hit the floor out of training, they were gonna start like really tracking your time seriously. And if you didn't hit your times right, like there would be repercussions. They could even lead up to you getting fired. Yeah, fun stuff. So I just kind of had an inkling, like I'm probably gonna get fired anyways. Plus, if anybody ever does a phone audit with me, like one of the things you had to do if somebody called in to cancel, as I mentioned, was save the account. And I never did that. Honestly, if somebody wanted to cancel their account, I was like, I got you, girl. We'll cancel this thing real quick. Not a problem. Like, everything is a prompted script there, right? Like, everything. Most generic prompted script, so disingenuous. It's what they wanted you to read. I'm sure a lot of you guys have experienced this if you've ever called customer service for a lot of companies. It is shady, in my opinion. It's so disingenuous. And so I went off script all the time. I hated reading those things. And yeah, like if somebody called in wanted to cancel the account, I'm like, I got you, girl. I will cancel your account, no problem. And if somebody called in and was like, hey, I need to like save some money on my account or something, like I had typically 3 options for offering savings. And you were always supposed to start with option number 1, which is like the least amount, and then it would build up. And for whatever reason, the options for savings were different for every account, almost always. And occasionally you'd find an account that only really had 1 option for savings, and sometimes you find an account with 2, and I don't really know. But for the most part, most accounts would have 3 options to offer a savings, and they would kind of vary. So it would work from like the least amount of savings to like a pretty good discount typically. And so what you're supposed to do is work through all 3, and if they told you no, that's not enough, I'm gonna have to cancel my account, you build upwards. So that's a little pro tip for you there. Want to save a little bit of money on your like cell phone bill or maybe like your home package, call in and say, I need to save some money and work them through. And you know, I know you got 3 options there. Give me the meaty one. I want the big savings. Tell them that. So tell them Cristin sent you. Anyway. Yeah, somebody called in and was like, I need savings on my account. I would always hop to number 3. I'm like, I got you, girl. I'm not even gonna fool with all this junk. We're just gonna click on number 3 right now and see what we can save you. Cause I'm not even. I hate this job and I'm not even, okay? And if you don't like that after that, want to cancel your account, I got you. No problem. I'm not even gonna try to save you. Customer wants to cancel account, we're gonna cancel the account. V wants to get their schnitt together and not be so shady. Maybe we can talk about me being a better worker. During this time frame, I should mention, for the 3 months, I worked nearly 7 days a week. I was still doing the food samples. It was just on the weekends. So it'd be Monday through Friday, I'd be working at the call center. Saturday, Sunday, I would be doing the food samples. And the food samples, towards the end of it, were starting to pick back up. They were coming out of their slow season. And my manager kept calling me and asking me, hey, I got these demos, I need you to work them. I got demos, I need you to work them. And the hours and times were about the same at the demos as they were for working at the call center. It's just that call center was Monday through Friday, and the demos typically were Thursday through Sunday, but if you called and asked, you a lot of times could pick up extra work Monday through Wednesday. So sometimes I'd work 7 days a week during the demos, and then other times I would work 5 or 6 days a week. It just kind of varied. And then sometimes I just have 4 days. It was kind of all over the place, but on average I worked at least 5 days a week during the demos. So, hated the job at the call center, wanted out of it. Oh, just a little side note here, something a little interesting that it's just stuck with me all this time, right? So we were told there was a sister company, I want to say in the Philippines, and the folks in the Philippines were trucked in. They would live at the facility for 2 weeks handling these customer service calls, and then like live there, eat, sleep, work. Pretty much all they did was probably work, right? And then they'd get bussed out back home, and they would get another round of people to bus back in to work for 2 more weeks. Crazy, right? Like, could you imagine doing that in the US? Like, no, and no one would stand for that. So I just always thought that was kind of interesting. Like, I couldn't, like, they had couches and stuff like on our breaks we could go like rest at if we wanted to, because they would sometimes want you to pull a double. Being as I never got out of training officially, like I was like right on the tail end of it, like within like a week or so, I was gonna be hitting the regular floors. So since I was in training, I never had to do doubles, but once I was out on the floor, if they wanted me to do a double shift, they could definitely make that request. So they had like couches and stuff if somebody wanted to like rest on their break. So I couldn't imagine being in a facility for 2 weeks straight. Couldn't imagine. Especially just getting yelled and screamed at while you work by the customers the whole time. So I should state that this job was a very high turnover. They are constantly hiring. If you're in Lafayette, Indiana and you need a job, check out that call center. It's over by the mall. I'm sure you know what one I'm talking about. So yeah, it was very high turnover. At the time I was working, it was myself, somebody I went to high school with, different friend from the one who got me hired on, but one of my friends from high school, my cousin, and her friend. I'm very good at getting people hired on places that I work at, right? Like if I gotta hang out there and work all day, I wanna hang around people that I like. So like, come work with me. I also had all these people pretty much working at the demonstration jobs with me too. Me and my cousin at the time, she was doing the same thing I was. We were both working 7 days a week doing the demonstrations. So her friend had quit the day before, and the 3 of us show up. We're in the parking lot hanging out, waiting for the building to open. We start talking to a few of the other people that we were in training with, and we're all just standing around and we're like, we hate this job. We hate it. We don't want to be here. Let's quit. Sounds good, let's quit. And I had backup, right? Like I still had my demonstration job, and they were wanting me back, and they were promising me more hours, and I'm like, and same with my cousin, so I'm like, shoot, I'm out, I'm done, let's go. So we head inside. I want to say there was 4 or 5 of us, and we all walk up to the manager there on that shift, and we're like, we quit. And he's like, what? And we're like, we quit. he's like, am I being punked? Like, that's literally what he said. Am I on punked? Like, no, we quit. And he's like, why? And we're like, we hate this job. We quit. And he's like, I've never had this many people want to quit at one time before. I'm like, well, you do today, sir. So they had to take us all up front for us to all do the exit interview because we all quit at the same time. So I went back to doing the food demonstration job. After that, met my now husband, yada yada, right? And I worked the food demonstration job for 4 years. So I was almost 20 when I hired in. So 20, 21, 22, 23. That's not right. I'm trying to do some math here and think about some things because I was like, I was 26 when I had my first kid, 25 when I got pregnant with him, did not work when I was 25, pretty much. So I was almost 24 when I quit doing the food demonstration job. I turned 24 in April and I quit in February. So they hit another slow spot. I wasn't hardly getting any hours at all. In fact, I think I went an entire month when I only worked 3 days the entire month. And so my husband and I were living off of his paycheck solely. So, and this is back before I did plasma, dog grooming. I had one job, okay? I only throw that out there for anybody who watches me and knows I have a few different sources of income. So we had his job and my job doing food demonstrations. I'd only worked maybe 3 times the entire month. So I was also having issues with my boss. Really liked her, no big problems with her. I'm still friends with her on Facebook, but I kept asking to get transferred out to the Frankfurt Walmart, and she would not transfer me. She kept telling me I gotta hire in one more person before I can transfer you. I gotta hire in one more person. She'd hire somebody in, but then she wouldn't do the transfer. And it was getting really frustrating because I didn't want to work at the store that was my permanent anymore. Because like, even though I got to travel around and do a lot of stuff, like I still had one permanent store. And so like if she really truly needed me, she could pull me away. Like my district manager would like send me a bunch of different places. But like since she was my main manager, like at her store, if she really needed me, she could pull me off of his stuff and make me work her store. And I hated going to that store because at the time that store was nothing but drama. Everybody had issues with everybody except for me. I was friends with everybody, and so everybody wanted to vent with me about everybody else, and when I wouldn't agree with them, they'd get upset with me for not agreeing. And it's like, I just wasn't there for the drama. Drama's never been my thing. Like, I'll listen to everybody's drama, but I don't want to be involved in everybody's drama, right? So how many out there you keeping up with the Shane Dawson thing right now, and the Tati and the, you know, who all's out there sipping that tea? I don't want to be involved in it. I just want to hear about it. So I was trying to get out of that store because I was so tired of all the gossip and people that I really liked like dogging on each other all day long. So she just like would not do the transfer for whatever reason. So I ended up talking to somebody I went to high school with whose mom was a pet groomer, and dog grooming is something that I was always interested in. And I just thought, you know, we're making it on one income. This is like my opportunity to see, you know, if maybe I can follow this and become a dog groomer. So I contacted the girl that I went to school with whose mom was a dog groomer, and she told me that, yeah, her mom actually took on apprentices, and I got myself in a paid apprenticeship at a grooming salon. I do have a video that goes in depth with this, so I will link that below if you want more information. I worked there for 3 months, I think. It wasn't super long. We ended up having some issues towards the end. She wanted me to sign like this insane contract that said I would work for her for 5 years, and if I quit within that time frame, I would owe her $1,000. Even though she knew when I hired in that there's a very good chance I would be moving to Lafayette, again an hour away, and so I would have to quit if that happened. And she, like verbally, her and I talking about it, she'd be like, oh, I won't follow through with any of this as long as you give me plenty of notice and like I'm aware of what's going on. But I'm like, on paper though, it says I'm gonna owe you $1,000 if I quit within 5 years. Doesn't matter what we're sitting here chit-chatting about saying, like on paper though, this is what it says on paper. And I was just not comfortable signing that contract, so I had to walk away from that position because I wasn't gonna do that. So I went about 2 weeks without a job, and then I seen somebody posting on the Facebook garage sale sites. It was another mom and pop style grooming salon who was looking for a groomer. So I take my portfolio in and I have an interview, and they say, you know, yeah, we're interested in having you come on, but you still need more training. You're not up to par for what we need. Keep in mind, working at the other salon, I was finishing my apprenticeship with her. I had gathered all of my own clients. That was one of her stipulations. She was not going to give me clients. I had to go get my own clients. So I had to go hang the flyers up different places around town. I made Facebook posts all the time on Facebook, like the marketplace for my area, just trying to get clients. And I was to the point where I was doing about 8 dogs a day total. So that was nails, anal glands, baths, blow dries, and haircuts. Shih Tzus and Poodles I've got the most experience with, if you're interested. I've done plenty of Yorkies, and yet I still feel like I can never get their ears right. Personal struggles. So yeah, I go in with my portfolio and he can see everything that I've been doing, and the other lady seemed perfectly okay with the quality of work I was doing, and I was putting out 8 dogs a day, and she was like she'd come over and kind of check everything, but like she wasn't really fixing any mistakes. She was, you know, they're good. And so she was, you know, trying to get this contract ready and wanted me to sign it so that I could officially become an employee and stop being her apprentice. And I walked away over the contract. So this guy says that I'm not quite up to snuff and that he will take me on as his apprentice, but unpaid. The other lady paid me half of what I made. So I think she charged, I don't remember, let's say she charged 40 bucks for a dog. I would make $20 off of that plus tips. So this next place didn't want to pay me nothing, but I didn't have to go get clients. I had a few clients that followed me, and they actually still come to me to this day, but I didn't have to get clients. They provided everything there for training, and after my training was done, I was supposed to become an employee, whereas the other lady wanted me to be an independent contractor. It was a whole thing. Again, I've covered it all in that other video. So I start my apprenticeship. Supposed to take like 6 weeks, whatever. Start my second apprenticeship, and I will be forever grateful for these people because they, for free, on my end, trained me and gave me a skill that I can use. I suck at college. I never got through college. Just racked up debt over that. Was not for me. And so these folks gave me a legitimate skill that I can use and still use to this day. And so I will be forever grateful for the experiences that they gave me and taught me. Forever grateful. I'm not trying to dog on them at all. But being mom and pop shops, it seemed like their rules changed every day, and I did not always agree with everything that they wanted to do. Again, I went further in depth with my other video. So this guy turns out he's like a freaking perfectionist, no hair out of place, which is a good thing. I learned a lot about polishing working for him. So I worked for him for I feel like a month or more, and I was like, hey, you know, what are you thinking? Are you gonna hire me on yet? And he's like, no, you needed to go a little longer as your unpaid apprentice. And I'm like, okay. So I think I ended up working there for like 2 months, 3 months, something like that, maybe 3 months. And I get up to doing 4 dogs start to finish of his quality. Now keep in mind that almost from the get-go, I start doing all the bathing, which they had a bather there. But this was also like part grooming salon, part pet shop, and the wife of the owner was heavily connected with the Humane Society, and so they constantly had like animals there, like all the time, like even ones from the Humane Society that just like they needed extra space to keep an animal or something. So they would have the bather go through and like muck cages and make sure everything's fed. So even though I was showing up, I think at like 9 o'clock in the morning to start my job, and she was showing up at 9 too, she had to go muck cages and feed things. And so by the time she got back to the grooming salon, it'd be pushing like, you know, 10, 11 o'clock. So I would just start doing all the bathing. So by the time she got back there, I'd have almost everything done. So I was doing almost all the bathing, all the blow drying. I brought anal glands with me. That sounds disgusting. They were not offering anal glands when I started working there, but I knew how to do it. So I was doing anal glands. I was doing almost all of the nail trims on the dogs that were getting baths, along with on all the dogs that were getting grooms, along with walk-ins. I was doing a lot, and on top of all of that, I was also doing my own 4 dogs a day of their haircuts. So, and they would have up to anywhere from 8 to 13 dogs on hand. So that's 13 dogs roughly of baths, blow dries, anal glands, nail clips, and then 4 of those I would do the haircuts on. So I'm busting my butt, and at one point they even make a comment to me and say, before you worked here, we weren't leaving until 6 and 7 o'clock at night, and now we're leaving at 5 o'clock, because with grooming, the faster you get them out, the sooner you go home. It's kind of how that works. I cut time off of everybody because of how much I was working, how hard I was working. I didn't take breaks, I didn't take lunch breaks. I just wanted to get in and get out. And so, you know, I busted my butt there. And I can remember finally going to him and saying, hey, I've, you know, worked here for free for like 3 months now. I'm doing 4 dogs a day, start to finish, to your liking. Can I at least get paid for these 4 dogs? Because this grooming salon I was working at was a ways away, so I had quite the drive to get to it. And so I was eating into gas, you know? And so he says, I don't have the money to pay you. So I quit. Because what that translated to me was, I'm using you for free labor and I never had intentions of hiring you. Which, if he had started with that, I probably still would have taken on the position, because, you know, more training is never a bad thing, especially for free, and like pet training is very expensive. But to hire somebody in under false pretenses, and of course there is never any paperwork at all, but verbally under false pretenses of like promising them a job, I think is really shady. So after that, I got a job at a daycare. And I will be forever thankful for this daycare experience, because my childcare experiences were like none. Okay, I'm not even gonna say limited. They were none. I was an only child, and all of my cousins were like my own age, and so like I had 0 experience with little kids until this job. And I'm thankful for what I learned at this place, because I was able to implement it into my own life and being a mom. I learned a lot in like the 3 months I worked there. So I get a job working at a daycare, another mom and pop shop type place. I hate to say anything bad about it, because I absolutely love the people that I work for. Well, it was only one, it was the lady that I worked for, but her son was there too, and he worked at the shop. But like the daycare. But the daycare was ran out of their home, and they tried to set it up like a preschool, and kind of, but it was really just daycare. And she was saying that I was her teacher because I had experience being a substitute teacher. Girl, like, substitute teachers are pretty much glorified babysitters. You make sure nobody sticks the finger in a light socket, and like that the classroom doesn't catch fire. Okay, that's kind of what you're there for. So like she wanted me to do like lesson plans and like all this stuff, and I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing. Why am I here? And there's a lot that went into that job. I also have a whole video on why I quit daycare as well. I can link that video down below too. Yeah, I would have to come in at like 6 in the morning, make breakfast for the kids. All the kids would show up, whatever. Supposed to do a lesson plan in there at some point. And then we would do lunch. I'd have to make lunch for the kids, and then it would be nap time, and then while they're napping I was supposed to do more of my lesson plans and get my own lunch. And then I think I tried doing from 6 a.m. until 8 p.m. and I think I did it 1 or 2 nights. Then I was like, this is too much, because I worked it 5 days a week, and I was like, that's too much. So then I started leaving around 2? I don't know. Whatever the 8-hour mark was after having like a 30-minute lunch is when, well, I would eat with the kids. So like, I mean, I would get a break because it was mandatory that I'd get a break. And I would go next door to my parents' house, because the daycare is actually right next door to my parents' house. And my mom would make me lunch. But sometimes I'd also eat lunch with the kids. I don't remember. It's been a few years. But I got like a 30-minute break, and I ended up cutting it down to where I was just working like the 8-hour shift. So probably a little over 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, 12 was lunch. That's 6 hours, 12, 1, 2. Yeah, that'd be right. About 2 o'clock was about when I was leaving. So, because I'd go to lunch and then they'd have nap, and nap lasted for a couple of hours, and then I'd leave after nap time. So yeah, I worked that for 3 months, but then towards the end of it, I got pregnant and I started getting super irritable and everything like just made me mad, and I was super sensitive to smells, and yeah, I ended up quitting because I was like, I can't do this. And again, I go more in depth with that job and why I quit it. I'll leave links below to that video as well. Again, forever grateful for working for this lady and the experiences that she gave me and what she taught me, and I was able to implement it into being a parent and managing my own household and like raising my own kids. But I don't think that working for mom and pop shops is really my thing, because policies change like the wind. So yeah, I did the stay-at-home mom thing for like 2 years, loved it. That's what I'd really like to be doing. Somewhere within the mix of this time frame, I think it was when I first started doing dog grooming, which would have been back in like 2014-ish time frame, I started YouTube. I just needed a hobby, something that was mine, something I could enjoy. I knew some people made money off of it, but I didn't know how they were making money off of it. I was pretty much clueless on YouTube. So I was just kind of like piddling around, like upload. I didn't have a clue. So it about kills me when I watch these people like Coffee Break with Danny, who are huge now. And I'm like, we started at the same time. You know, like you're making a living and I'm like making pocket change. I'm doing pretty good now here, but it's not like some other people. So anyways, during the time frame, I made a YouTube channel. It was just for fun, for a hobby. I didn't take it super seriously. I didn't know really what I was doing. And I was just kind of like in the background, you know? So I kind of started taking it more seriously once I got pregnant and I quit my job, just because I needed something to like really focus on. Like I needed that structure in my life. So I just kind of treated it like a job. Like I woke up, I filmed, I edited, did my uploads, all of that stuff. It's something I've just kind of continued doing and growing, and I'm here. Hi, I'm here. I'm still working here. This has definitely turned into like a small business for me, and I gotta pay taxes on it and all that fun stuff. And I'm making, well, I was making about $440 a month for the last couple of months, but here for July, we are looking like $484 as of tonight. And I've got until July 15th to keep making money. So we'll see if we don't hit that $500 mark. That'll be the most I will have ever made on YouTube. I'll be excited. So after 2 years of being a stay-at-home mom with my firstborn, we ended up having the opportunity to buy the house next door to us and having it demolished and expanding out our yard. Got a whole other video on that. I can link that below as well. It had a house fire. But there's a whole story time. So linked below if you want to just keep watching my videos. So I needed to go back to work to pay for the loan we took out to buy the house and have it demolished. So I went back to doing the food samples. It had actually changed hands, same store, but changed hands who they were outsourcing to for doing the demonstration. So new company, and I've been with them for 2 years this June or July. Can't remember. I think it's July. 2 years this month. But since COVID, I have not been working, so there's that. We might go back in August is what I'm hearing. So yeah, currently my jobs, I still do pet grooming, but I do it out of my own home. I did interview with Petco, and that was like right after my second apprenticeship. Brought in my portfolio, had my interview. The lady who ran the Petco was very interested in hiring me, but she said that corporate regulation said that you either had to work for 1 year on your own or you had to go through the apprenticeship program for Petco. And they needed somebody who could work immediately as a pet groomer. They didn't have the time to train me. So she said that she really, she called corporate and really tried to get me hired on, but like corporate was not having it. So I did not get the job. Fun fact, about 6 months ago, I got an email from them saying, hey, if you're still dog grooming, do you want a job? Got a job offer from Petco. Like they actually sought me out. It's kind of interesting, kind of felt good. The little corporation that's like, hey, we need a pet groomer. But now that I know what I know, and I've done it for as long as I have, I'm like, why go work for a corporation when I can just do it at my own house and make all the money myself? why work for you and give you half the money when I can just do it myself with my own equipment and make all the money, right? So I have a small client base that comes to my house. How many dogs do I have now? Got about 9 dogs on rotation and 1 that we'll see if they come back or not. So yeah, I've got, you know, I do pet grooming, I do YouTube, I work on the weekends doing food samples, you know, when that happens. I don't know when I'll go back, but I'm open to it. I also donate plasma. That's pretty lucrative. It's not technically a job, but we treat it as a job. It's twice a week for about 45 minutes to an hour, and I make $70 a week donating plasma. And then I also sell stuff on Facebook Marketplace, which I know is also not a job, but like you can also rack up a decent amount just getting rid of things that you don't need anymore. So, you know, just throwing that out there. Yeah, that is everything for my jobs. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you have enjoyed. Make sure to give it a big thumbs up if you did enjoy so other people can find the video. Subscribe if you've not already. I'd love to have you here. Typically I do a lot of vlogging content, but you know, today we're doing this. And then make sure you go check out Melissa Caitlyn's video if you want to go hear about all the jobs that she had. If you enjoy me, I think you'll really enjoy her. So, and also check the description box down below, not only for Melissa's link, but also for all the videos I've mentioned. So thank you so much for hanging out here with me and watching this video, and hope to catch you guys in my next one.